Throughout history, women have been at the forefront of change. Women are leaders, artists, thinkers, inventors, revolutionaries. Women have pushed boundaries and answered the call of duty. From voting rights to civil rights, women have been there, standing up, making a difference, challenging our world to be better and do better. When Rose Blumkin founded Nebraska Furniture Mart in 1937, she challenged the world. Sell cheap and tell the truth wasn't just her motto. It was a challenge to businesses everywhere to put the customers and community first and make integrity a foundation of your business. And as we celebrate Women's History Month, we think about Mrs. B's advice. Set your goals high and don't really have what you would call a top. You should go for the heavens. Because women's history isn't only about where women have been, it's about everything women choose to be.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this International Women's Day panel. I'm Cammy Watkins. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Deputy Director of Inclusive Communities, and I will be moderating this panel today with this phenomenal group of leaders who are all women. The theme of this panel is transformational leadership through women. And this group of fabulous individuals are certainly transformers and amazing leaders. Now, I'm going to start with asking them questions, and then we will have an opportunity for our online participants to submit questions. So please feel free to put them in, and we'll get to them at the end of our group panel presentation. But let's go ahead and get started. So first, I would like to ask each of you if you would please tell us what your role professionally is, and then share a little bit about yourselves and how you see women in leadership fostering transformation and innovation. And I'm going to start with Nora.
Well, I really appreciate it. My name is Nora Gomez, and I am the Chief Merchandising Officer here at Nebraska Furniture Mart. I identify with my pronouns of she and her. I am married to Keith Gomez, who's in the audience, and we have two lovely children. Well, they're not children anymore, Nicholas and Lucy. I was just trying to help you think I was younger than I really I joined Nebraska Furniture Mart just about 3 years ago. We relocated here from Texas. And, being a part of retail ever since I graduated from college and coming up through the ranks as a woman has been an interesting journey. And there's a couple of moments, high moments and low moments during that career. But one of the moments I'm most proud of is joining this organization.
Hi, I'm Melanie Morrissey-Clark. I'm president of Clark Creative Group, which I have owned with my husband for 29 years. We are the parents of 23-year-old triplets, Cooper, Sophie, and Simon. And I'm really happy to be here on celebrating International Women's Day. I identify with she, her pronouns as well. I see women innovating in the community through encouraging people to think outside the box, not putting too many parameters around them, making mistakes, being transparent about those, owning those, and then getting down in the trenches and working alongside their teams like Mrs. B did. I'm old enough to remember her in the store, every time you'd come in, just tooling around, talking to people, and she's a great one to emulate, so I'm happy to be here today.
I'm Candace, Candi Jones, you can call me Candi, and I work full-time at Mutual of Omaha, and I created a role as a corporate career coach. So my role is really around personal and professional development in that space. But outside of Mutual, I operate a business, Coaching with Candi, where I do a lot of work in the community around sexual trauma, violence, domestic violence, and just speaking up. And I think where we as women can innovate change and really show up is just bringing all of our pieces. So I like to bring all of who I am, meaning all of my trauma, all of the things that have shaped me, into every space I'm in. So corporate, community, whatever that looks like, I feel like we need to be there. And I feel like as women, we have a special mission to kind of bring all of that information to the forefront and help people just be themselves in whatever spaces they choose to be in. So I'm super excited to be here with these amazing women.
I'm Courtney Novogratz. I'm a designer. I work alongside my husband, also of 30 years, and I'm a mother of 7 children. And I just try to inspire everyone that works in our company to be their best self. and to also embrace their failures, because that's part of life. We don't always get it right the first time, and to really then focus on their strengths. And my husband and I wear many hats, from real estate to a brand to, of course, our family role, and just really leaning on each other and leaning on our team is what really drives us the most and brings us so much joy, building something together and incorporating our children and really trying to find that balance of work and family life and being a strong woman on a job site, which I've been doing for 30 years. A lot of people don't realize, but I do most of the construction part. My husband has phenomenal taste and does a lot of the decorating. So it's surprising for most people, but that's how we've been working for so long. And I'm just so excited to be here. It's my first time to Nebraska, and I loved my day yesterday. I got to see a lot, which was great, and excited to meet all you women.
Hi, I'm Erica Wassinger. I'm one of 3 female general partners at Proven Ventures. We're a Burlington Capital Fund. We have 2 incredible allies and our male co-founders on the fund too. And I would say I'm lucky because I'm the product of all the women whose shoulders I get to stand on, truthfully, Mrs. B and all the you up here. Our fund's entire focus is making sure that entrepreneurs and innovators in our state have every resource available to them, including capital, which in venture capital is hard to come by for female founders for some odd reason. And so we're making sure that that is no longer an issue and that Nebraska actually can be the epicenter of entrepreneurship for everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you so much and welcome. Thank you for being part of this. So this first question is for Courtney. Thank you for coming all the way out here from New York and to join us to be with us today. And we had a chance to have a conversation yesterday, and we talked about being in the arena from the TED Talk that Brene Brown has done, and how much we as women sometimes apologize for what seems to be our basic existence. And in that conversation, you shared with me a lesson that you learned about how we should be making people earn our story. And I just thought that was such a beautiful and poignant idea. So can you share that with us?
I'm sure. So I work with my husband. I, put my kids on a reality show when it was really scary, before, we had, for example, family members do an intervention with us and said, you shouldn't do this. And we were like, you try raising 7 kids in the middle of Manhattan. We're doing this, And we believed in ourselves, and we still believe in ourselves. And I really don't apologize for the life I've lived, the choices I make. And I try to live fearlessly. And I don't always have the answer, but I also dream big. And so my point last night was the one thing that I tried to do is keep my village really tight and nurture those people and tell them my dreams. But it's a really close-knit group, because I've learned, for example, with that reality show, when we told too many people, they brought all their fears on us, and that wasn't helping us. They didn't make us strong together. That really made us question each other. And so all of us have big dreams. No matter what age we are, we have to keep having dreams and then reinventing them and changing as the industry, whatever field you're in, grows and changes along the way. But share those dreams to your closest people. Let them know your story, where you are now today, where you plan to go in the next 5 years, and where you plan to go 20 years from now. Because those people will have your back. They're going to be your village. One year we did a holiday card, and it said, honor your village. It takes a village. And it was 30 people in our holiday card. It was the 9 of us, my husband, my 7 kids, and then grandparents, godparents, teachers, tutors, piano coaches. It was everyone, designers, contractors, everyone in my village. And that's a tight group of people that I lean on, because I can't do it all alone. And so it's really sharing those intimate dreams with the people around you that make you stronger, that you can, lean on, and keeping your dreams close to heart and then moving forwards.
I love that. Thank you. So this next question's for all of you. As you all may know, Mrs. B's legacy was really about challenging the status quo. And she was a small female immigrant who decided she wanted to be her own boss in the 1930s. She saw that she could provide better service to the people in Omaha than the men that were currently in this industry were doing, and she set out to do it against all odds. So I would love to hear each of you share something from your experiences in which you've helped challenge norms to accomplish your goals and better serve your clients and or the community. Candi, we'll start with you first.
I'll probably use, I guess, a couple different examples. I mentioned earlier how it's super important for me, for women to bring all of themselves to any space that they're in. And so when I created the role at Mutual to be a corporate coach, by all intents and purposes, people would think I wasn't qualified to do it. Because many people look at whether it's my blackness, whether it's I'm a female, whether it's I'm a single mother, whatever it is, as barriers as to how can she do this role at this Fortune 500 company. And so when I created this role and went into my leadership and said, this is something I know I can do, that I know I'm capable of doing, I remember the resistance, and I remember some of the feedback, and I remember my mother's in the audience, my best friend is in the audience. I remember some of the crying I did around, they don't believe in me. What am I supposed to do here? But I also remember, and I channel the Mrs. B's and the others in the world who said, but you can do all things. There's absolutely nothing you can't do, and I'm super spiritual, and so I remembered that, who I am and whose I am means I can show up wherever I want to show up. And so when I created that role and said, no, I can be a corporate coach for every single 5,000 employee in this organization, I set the goal, I made the goal, I created the plan, and now here we are 3 years later. And having seen and coached hundreds of people, I realized that it is my power, it is my superpower, it's what I do. And no one can tell me what I'm qualified to do, right? I only know what I'm qualified to do. And I think I channel that in everything. And I tell people to channel that in everything. Don't let what a job description tells you define who you are. Don't let what that background says you should have define who you are. And definitely don't let what they see define who you are. And that has been my story, literally my whole life. And so for me, it really is the work that I do in the community, the work that I do in the corporate spaces is bringing absolutely everything I am, from my hair to my nails to my skin, into every space and saying, I'm here and I deserve to be here. And that's just, I just think we need to channel that more and be more, in tune with just who we are and what we bring to the table.
Melanie, if you want to go.
Thanks, Candi. So I was given a really wonderful opportunity about 24 years ago to start a magazine for the Women's Fund called Today's Omaha Women. And that has allowed me to take a big role in elevating and celebrating women in our community, all of their accomplishments. We found right away that it was never hard to find women to feature, but we did also find, I found anyway, that a lot of them were reluctant to talk about their accomplishments, to celebrate themselves. So I feel like that filled a great role in just pushing women to think about the great things they're doing and be out there and take the accolades and take the credit. We also used the magazine to just kind of change the conversation, change the narrative around issues like violence against women, equal pay, leadership, things like that. And that has been also an incredible experience. And I know we've had an impact because I hear from people who read the magazine, and that has just been a great joy for me.
Nora.
I am the product of a single mom, and a single mom who became a single mom much later in her life. She was married for a number of years and to our father, and one of the things that has really invoked that survival and that spirit of survival for me in my career and for busting the glass ceilings, if you will, is how she worked so hard to keep my brother and I both in college. My brother went to Princeton and I went to Syracuse, and here's my mom working 24/7, 365, 3 different jobs to keep us in school and not interrupt our lives as her life was interrupted. And so I always think about her every morning when I wake up and every night when I go to sleep, and thank her for her spirit and for her art of perseverance and for owning herself and wanting to be so giving to my brother and I. And I think about that with my own children, because they're both following in my footsteps in our industry of retail. And I want them to understand that while it may be difficult and you're going to make mistakes, there's a good place this is a good industry and it's a good place to be. And we need youth in our industry to come up through the ranks and to create that innovation and that sustainability in our industry. It's that fighting spirit. It's never giving up. It's channeling your inner Mrs. B and being extremely fearless, and just going for it. I recently saw something, a women's display in New York. I'm not sure if maybe others have seen it, but I saw a photo of this little girl, and she was standing in the middle of a warehouse with glass shards all over. And I thought to myself, how powerful that image was of that little girl knowing that there was no glass ceiling that was going to hold her back. And that spoke volumes.
Absolutely. Erica.
I'm an investor. I'm in the business of taking someone's hard-earned dollar and turning it into more dollars over a certain amount of time. And so my career, especially over the last 10 years, has really been figuring out how do I do that the best I can possibly do. And I have had the extreme privilege of working with hundreds of entrepreneurs and figuring out what makes a great entrepreneur, what makes their ability to create a company that if I put a little bit of money into, I can get a little bit more out and they can create wealth for themselves. And I think in that pursuit, I didn't think I'm looking to invest in women. I didn't think I'm looking to invest in people of color. I thought I'm looking to invest in incredible entrepreneurs that are going to create incredible companies. And over the last several years, I have been humbled and privileged to really see and have an incredible front row seat that objectively, if you want to make great investments, they're coming from everywhere. They're coming from women. They're coming from people of color. They're coming from men. And if you can figure out a way to the best of your ability to remove all the bias and all the garbage that tells us we can't and we shouldn't and we won't and we can't create something that big, you'll find great businesses led by great entrepreneurs. And by the way, they happen to be women and they happen to be a person of color. And I think for me, that has been awe-inspiring and confidence boosting and all of the things to realize that I can be great and I am great and all of these women that I get to work with are incredible. And it's not necessarily exclusively because we're women. I think we're actually a little bit maybe better poised because we might multitask a little differently and we might be a little resilient and all the things. But objectively, we're great deals. We are a great deal. We're a great investment opportunity. And I think for me, that's really been the work of my career, and I'm privileged to have that work.
Absolutely.
Well, I am so fortunate to be in the home industry, and I love creating incredible places for people, especially this year, more than ever. Everyone has found themselves home. And I also love having a career and raising my kids along the way. And so I try to really support women that you can do it all. There is a way to do that. I love Nora's comment about her mother because I grew up the youngest of 5 in South Georgia, and my parents, actually it's funny I work with my husband because my parents ran a small business together. And I would remember asking my mom, how did you do it? And she was like, I just took you and put you in the playpen to work. Yep. And so, you know, I shared earlier where sometimes I'll see someone that's in the same, you know, industry. Maybe they have a big headquarters. And a part of my ego will be like, oh, I need to do that. And then I have to remind myself what works for me and for my family and for my work. And so to manage and to control all I can on a smaller scale. So sometimes less is best. Sometimes more is not better, more and more. And so I try to allow people, women especially, to realize what can you control, put your team into place, back to my point about the village, and really create what you can manage to the best of your ability, which is possibly being a single mom and having a job and a child, or having 7 kids and a husband that I also have to make sure he's happy. You know, really creating what you feel like you can control, but it's not all up to you. Nurture those relationships. Let people know when you need help. And, you know, just build a really strong foundation so that you can keep moving forward.
That's so great about the idea of what can you control. Because I think so often we get caught up in trying to manage and control things because there's this expectation that we should be rulers of all. But when we center it there. And I think this is a great segue into a question I have for Melanie. I understand you didn't take a traditional route towards leadership and that you really forged your own leadership path organically. Can you share with us how you honed your leadership skills and throughout your life?
Yes, and I don't know that this is super unique, but for me, I have kind of honed my leadership skills through our business, obviously, but also through volunteering and serving on nonprofit boards. And that has been a great experience for me, taking on leadership roles there. In addition to that, I have learned so much that I've taken back to my business. And just one example of this, there are so many, but one is human HR. Small companies like mine with 15, 16 employees don't typically have an HR department. And so we just kind of piece it together, my accountant and I. But nonprofit boards often have HR committees. And so I've learned a ton about HR from just being on nonprofit boards. I've learned a lot about just internal structure. They're oftentimes structured internally with their staff and things in the same way that small businesses are. So I've learned a lot there, and then vice versa too. I've been able to contribute on that side. And then most importantly, I've probably made some of the most deepest and most meaningful friendships through that service, both with the leaders in the nonprofits on their staffs, and then also with board members, because we share the same passion, because we're there doing something that we really care about. And so for that reason, those relationships are extremely deep, and we mentor each other throughout our lives, and those are lifelong relationships that I really value.
That's so important. And speaking of kind of relationships, I think, Nora, I would like this next question for you. You've had such a phenomenal career with NFM and have been a transformational leader in so many different ways, but we know that growth and success doesn't come without challenges. And so I would love for you to share with us, what types of adversity have you faced on your leadership journey, and did you find it difficult to seek women leaders that inspired you as you were on this journey?
That's I love that question. It's interesting, and I don't think it's specific to my industry that I'm in, but when I was coming up through the ranks, if you will, everyone in the senior level positions were men. We had the president of Victoria's Secret, a man. Really? Come on. The president of Lane Bryant, a man. What? I mean, and so I kept thinking to myself, there has to be a way, and I kept believing in myself and not succumbing to pressures to get there in unconventional ways. And I think everyone in the audience would understand what those unconventional ways could have been. And when I broke into the fashion industry, I had my goal set, and my goal was to be the youngest vice president in the history of the limited organization, right? So everybody knows back in the day, shaker knit sweaters, stirrup pants, come on, I know you probably remember those. You probably were wearing those. And it got to a point where, there wasn't anything that I feared. I learned, I had a boss, a mentor, who would pick up the phone and he'd go, "Hey, Nora, you want to fly to Israel? We're going to open up a t-shirt factory there." And I'd be like, "Oh yes, definitely, let's go." And so I became a sponge, and through that I learned a lot of ways that I wanted to be as a leader, and I learned a lot of ways that I didn't want to be as a leader, and it was very humbling. And I'll never forget this moment. It was a turning point for me in my career when we were in our Monday morning meeting, and they were going through the announcements, and they announced that I was going to be promoted to this position of vice president of product development and design. And I didn't know about it, so you can imagine the look on my face. And I could not wait to get out of that room, though, because I wasn't used, I just wasn't used to the attention, I guess. And I couldn't wait to get out and call my husband and say, "Oh my God, we did it." And I say that we did it because I could not have done that if my husband had not put his career on hold for me. Mm-hmm. And I think, there's always this saying, behind every great man is a great woman, right? And if you flip it, it doesn't sound any better. Behind every great woman is a great man. And I don't believe in either of that. What I believe in is we together are great. And I look at my husband as my partner, and for one of the big reasons why I'm sitting up here and being able to share my story with you. And, you know, uncertain times, you know, this was very unconventional for him to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to stay home. I'm going to take care of the kids. I'm going to integrate myself into their lives, be their coaches, their mentors, their teachers, the friends, and you go and live, and you go for your dream. And to have a partner like that is one of the most invaluable things. And every time I talk about it and I look at him sitting out there, I think I'm more proud of what he's done with his career. In raising our children, and now he's going through figuring out what he wants to do because they're out of the house, right? So, but I think it's really that adversity, and it's that partnership of having someone with you in your corner, side by side with you, supporting you throughout all of it. And it's busting again through those glass ceilings. It's taking down those walls of it has to be a certain type of person, Candi, to your point, in this position. And it's like, oh no, it doesn't, because I know I can do that.
I love that, and the camaraderie of partnership in all of this. I'm going to give this next question to Candi. So you definitely are one of those women that anyone who meets you instantly becomes your best friend. And I know your best friend's in the audience, but you got to know she's all of our best friend. And so as a speaker and a life coach, share with us, why is it so important for us as women to uplift each other? And what advice would you give to foster authentic and meaningful relationships?
You know, as I thought about that question, I was trying to think of what would be the most genuine answer I could give. And the realest answer I can give is just, I guess, telling why I'm this way, right? And I think what has happened over the course of my life is I have found in the support I've had from my mother, my best friend, other women that have just continuously poured into me when I was like at my lowest point, right? And I think we all go through that low point, and if you have someone in your corner that can remind you you're great, it changes your life. Your spouse, your kids, your mother, your best friend, whoever it is that can pour into you. And sometimes the issue is we have those people in our corners, but we don't tap into them. What I've learned over time is that I need people. I need people for real. And I think you get into the space, and I think we have told ourselves, whether it's for women or men or whomever, that we can do it and we don't need anybody and we got it and we'll figure it out. And the reality is we don't have it, and we do need people, and we need people to pour into us and love us. And so because of all of that love and genuine love that I've received throughout my life, that has helped me heal, that has helped me grow, that has helped me become, that has helped me build this business and build this life for myself, I do it for others because I recognize how important it is. So when you say I'm everybody's best friend, I am. I mean, I'm y'all best friend too. Y'all just met me, but I'm y'all best friend too. And why that's important for me to say is because I think when people find someone genuine, they just know it. And so I've been so blessed that people, every time they meet me, say, you're just so genuine. I just feel it. And I'm like, you know what? First of all, count it all God. But second of all, know that this is who I am and this is my realness. And the reason I'm this way is because people have poured into me. And so if you take all the hats off that we put on each other, you don't know anything other. When you first meet me, all you know is Candi's that black woman over there. She's got big voice and she's always smiling. But you don't know all the identities I carry underneath me. And so I make it my business to tell you. Right? To tell you about being through sexual trauma and domestic violence, to tell you about the businesses, to tell you about all those things that have shaped me so that you too feel comfortable sharing who you are. And I think we need to do more of that. We need to stop hiding all the things that have brought us here, right? And stop acting like we're so here when it took a whole lot of stuff to get here, right? And I think once we can remove some of that I don't know what you call it, the blinders, right? Like we all want to show up a certain way when really, when we go home, there's real stuff happening. And so I bring that realness, and I think that's what people gravitate to. So I guess to encourage you, to encourage each other, start to break down some of those barriers that prevent you from showing up authentically, and understand that once you bring that side of you out, other people will bring that side of themselves out. And then you've got a genuine relationship. So yes, I'm everybody's best friend because what you see is what you get. And the good thing is I've been like this my whole life. and I don't think there's no changing, so you're stuck with me. But that's what I would say. And again, I base everything I do, from the way I speak to the way I'm carrying myself to the energy I create in every room, on love. That's my foundation. I love you first. I don't have to know you. I just love you, and then we'll develop a relationship from that. And that's how you bring people out. And I've seen great things as a coach. We talked about this last night a bit. It's a heavy job to have people pour into you as much as they pour into me. But again, I love people through things, and I help people get to a space where they can love themselves, and then you just see great things happen.
That's so good. And what really resonated for me was that, like, how do we start to shift this idea that we've all got it together? You know, sometimes I have to say, today I'm allowing of myself to be messy.
That's right.
Because I'm human, and that people don't see me as less competent because I'm messy. They just see me as human, and that's an aspect. Yeah. So, and this next question's for everyone. We've talked about these challenges and breaking norms and relationships and how those help us. Let's talk about, how do we start to change, or what needs to change in these discussions as we work to bring our authentic selves into our workspaces as women in leadership in your specific industry. So how can we change, and what needs to be changed in this discussion? And Erica, I'm coming to you first.
Good. Great. Great. So I work with entrepreneurs, and I think what I've really realized, especially over the last 10 years working with entrepreneurs, and especially women, that we need to embrace that you do not need someone else's permission to be a great founder. And Courtney, you're like iconic of this, right? And so are you, Melanie, and Nora in your career, and Candi in your career. Like, no one needs to tell you you are given permission to solve the problem you want to solve, to start the business you want to start. And I think that is that's something in my industry that I've really noticed. And so I would also come back to sort of some of the comments I've heard from my colleagues up here. You're not doing it all. You don't turn into Courtney like today with the idea. It's a build, and it's a snowballing effect. So how do you start with the small wins and give yourself permission to do the very first step and continue to manifest that momentum forward? And how do you pull people in? To Candi's point, I mean, I joke, I'm incredibly lucky. You know, our investors are half women, half men, allies on all sides. I just spent 3 days with one of our investors who literally took off work to introduce me to all of rural Nebraska, to say there's a new fund and you need to know about it. I, on Tuesday, jokingly had to phone one of our investors to help me navigate some legislation that was on the unicameral floor. I call, ask for help. You don't need someone's permission to be an incredible founder, to be an incredible entrepreneur, and they want to back and support you, and don't listen to someone if they're sort of in the negative zone. You know your business best.
Well, I think to keep that conversation going, Miss B started it in the 1930s. I obviously never got to meet her, but just everything I've heard over the past couple of days, she seems amazing. Everything she built as we sit here is incredible. And so to keep these conversations going, thank goodness we have today. I have 2 daughters, and I learn from them, and I learn from my mother-in-law and my own mother. And just really the incredible thing is, women are doing it. I mean, I think there's a first female football player at Vanderbilt College, which is kind of amazing. And so we have to just buckle down and keep it going for the rest of our lives. There's so many opportunities that exist now that didn't years ago. And I think what I try to do in my own life is also realize we need guys. I have 5 sons. I have a husband I work with. And so I don't let them know I can do it better. I say I can do it just as good as you guys do it. And I don't take no for an answer. Anyone that knows me, I just have never taken no for an answer. So if someone closes the door, I'll climb through the window, or I'll climb up on the roof and go down the chimney. I'm gonna get to my dream somehow, some way. And so I think it's really just listening to other women and saying, again, put those people that can support, call Candi, go over and get a life support, a life coach, and get all those people that are gonna help you, because we can't do it alone, but we are stronger than we think, and we can do just about anything.
Yeah, yes, and to all of that. I would add, in my space, I guess in my world of personal and professional development, I guess the cornerstone of my work is just making sure people understand that they truly can do whatever it is they want to do with a work and effort, right? You're right, none of this was built overnight. I'm sure we all have a lot of stories about how hard this is, but I think with the right mindset, which is where that healthiness comes from, that healthy mental mindset, that courageous mindset, that channeling all those things, and then just deciding. I think the hardest part for most of us, at least in my field, is getting people to just decide that this is what they want to do. The world is a heavy place. There's a whole lot of ways you could go, but you need to just decide and then work from that place of intention. So I guess in my field, I would say it really is about helping people understand that they can do it, but it does require work, and it does require effort, it does require support, and it requires intention. So you have to set the goal and you have to go for it. And I think for most humans, that's the hardest part. It's figuring it out. It's a heavy world. So I would say you just have to make the decision, make the plan, make it plain, and then go.
So I guess I would like to see us one day, even though we're not there yet, we still have a lot of underrepresentation for women at the top in corporations and on boards and things like that. But one of these days, I hope we stop putting the word women before leader, because we're just people. And I think we all bring different strengths and skills, and those are individual more than gender-based. We're not there yet, though, so this is great. And then also, 40% of businesses in the U.S. right now are owned by women, and I'd like to see more of that, partly because it's a really great way to have flexibility. To your point, Courtney, I mean, for us, it really gave us the chance to kind of mold our own plan with raising our kids. We were a 24/7 couple, just everything was all wrapped into one thing. And it's also really fulfilling, and you get to just kind of form your own path. So I just like to see more of that and encourage more women to do that and take that chance, because it's worth it.
So I think about the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go farther, go together. And when I look at the company of my posse up here, and I think about that, I think about what does that mean to our young folks who are coming up through the ranks and they've got so many different pressures on them. Not that we didn't, of course we did, but they're different. And how do we help young women feel confident and comfortable and empowered to own themselves and to believe in themselves and to not feel that they're judged by how they look or how they dress or how they speak, and really it's the unification, I think, of women in higher positions, in positions that they wanted, in businesses that they wanted to be a part of, but not being told what to do. And it's overcoming that. Well, history says this, and it's like, okay, but that already happened. What are you going to make? How are you going to leave your legacy? What do you want to own? Who are you? And how are you going to let people know who you are? And I think it's digging deep and being able to do that. It's a lesson I learned maybe too late in my career, but I remember telling my daughter, she said, "Mom, you look so different." It was shortly after I came on board to Nebraska Furniture Mart. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "I don't know, there's just something about you." And I thought about that, and I moved my family around. They were retail brats. I mean, my kids they don't even know what state they're from. I mean, we've moved so much. And I kissed a lot of frogs before I got here. And I said, "I think what you're seeing is I'm happy and I'm content." And I was so proud to voice those words into the universe. And I was so proud that she noticed that as well. So,
yeah, that so reminds me of Layla Saad talks a lot about thinking what kind of ancestor does she want to be. And so this idea of thinking of what's the legacy, and that legacy being built on having a vision towards the future. And I'm just looking at the quote from Mrs. B, I want to be my own boss, nobody's going to tell me what to do. And when I think about that, it instantly sends me to entrepreneurs. So this next question's for you, Erica. But I also want to remind, so this is one of our last questions. So if you've got questions for those of you online, please make sure you go ahead and put it in the chat or in the Q&A function. And for our audience members, if you have a question, any of Jackie, wonderful, beautiful woman, I want to thank her for all that she's done in organizing this entire event. She did a phenomenal job. If you have any questions in the audience, if you want to write that down and pass it to Jackie, she'll get those to me and we can go ahead and ask them for the panel as well. So Erica, so you and I first met, you were one of the first people I collaborated with when I started at Inclusive Communities. And I just remember being in awe of you and all of the work that you do and the connections that you built, not just like gained, but that you truly intentionally built. And the vision that you have for this city and for entrepreneurs and business startups. So talk to us about manifesting a dream. And what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who have a vision but aren't sure how to make it reality?
So before I answer your question, I need to say I could have written that script about you. And for those of you that don't know, Cammy is running for elected office, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that City Council is just a stop on her journey to help us lead better as a country, better as a city, better as a state. And so I am grateful for you, and I have all the same feelings about you. And I would say I'm pretty good at spotting good talent and good entrepreneurs, and right here we've got one of the best founders I think our city for sure has to offer, and I would argue our states.
Thank you.
So advice for entrepreneurs, advice for people. So I think there's a common thread amongst the world's greatest entrepreneurs is that they want to solve a meaningful problem. They don't necessarily set out to make millions and millions of dollars and have a huge headquarters and like all these sort of vanity metrics, but rather they want to do something meaningful and worthwhile and value adding. And those are the entrepreneurs that I'm most compelled toward, candidly, because there is so much more about what they're building and what they're doing than just a bottom line. And the bottom line is feeble at best, especially in venture. And so my advice to anyone that sees a problem we're solving is start to solve it and start to take the steps to change that and change that dynamic. I think my career path to venture honestly was completely rooted in problems. I was down in Texas and in New York, and I was doing public relations, and this is 10 years ago, right? So that was still a viable career at 10 years ago. And I moved back to Nebraska, sort of lovingly against my will, and my poor husband, I'm so grateful he brought me back home. When I got here, I didn't quite see the career path that I had seen for myself in New York and in Texas. And it became really difficult to figure out what was next for me. And I was really lucky to find one of those allies in a venture capitalist here and in a fund here, Candi Venture Capital in Mark Haysbrook. We began to solve problems around businesses and what made them grow and when they needed capital and how this would work. And that sort of dominoed me from going from the PR girl that everybody knew, which sort of is like a triggering thing for me now, to an investor that has worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs and acknowledges there is nuances to working with a female entrepreneur or a person of color or someone who comes from a rural community and otherwise, and there needs to be nuances into how we help support those businesses and how we provide capital to them. So I guess all of that to say is careers are built on solving problems and companies are built on solving problems. And so if women are exceptionally great at solving problems, I feel like it's all we ever do, right? And I think all of us are probably like, oh, what are we doing for lunch? And like, who's taking Johnny to daycare? And like the 99, oh, and by the way, I'm running a business and I'm doing these things. So that's it. It's that simple. Start to solve a problem, and then that's where really incredible things happen.
Awesome. Well, leaders, this has been an energizing discussion, and I know that we're going to have questions from our audience, and some questions are starting to come in here. So I want to give them time to learn from your brilliance. Just one more from a question for me. So I'm going to ask this last question for each of you before we open it up to the audience questions. What advice would you give to future leaders in the workforce? Just any, not just women, but leaders in general. Because I think there's so much that we can gain from all of our individual identities and our perspectives. And Melanie, we'll have you go first on this one.
I would say trust your instincts. 9 times out of 10, you know what to do. Even when you're young, you really do. If you just listen to yourself, you'll make the right decision. And if you don't make the right decision, you make a mistake, don't beat yourself up. That's how you learn, and just move on.
And we'll go to Nora.
I would say very much the same. Believe in yourself, embrace the opportunity. Failure is okay and necessary for growth. And remember that don't go on the journey alone. Bring others on the journey with you. Great leaders have great teams, and they lead great teams. But sometimes those great teams lead them as well. And so be open to that and surround yourself with people who don't know the same things that you do, and vice versa. Being a great leader, a big part of it is learning and listening to others.
Erica.
I keep saying I'm so lucky to be surrounded by the humans that I'm surrounded by, and I think for me one of the biggest pieces that I've learned in my career is figuring out who, sort of, this sounds really cliche, but who's the chairman of your board? Like who's your first phone call? I usually call my mom, call my husband, and then like who's that? I don't know if anybody else does that or if that's just an Erica thing. Who's that third phone call? And for me it's a woman named Beth Engel, and Beth has been not only my coach, just sort of a confidence boosting, and you've got this kind of a coach, but just a tactical person that helps me think through my challenges. And she has unlocked so much of my potential, I think, in just that third phone call that we make frequently. So
Yeah.
Find your Beth Engel, really, is the secret. Don't take mine, find yours. She's very busy with her job.
Noted. Courtney.
I would say, first of all, work hard. You really have to work hard. You have to embrace your failures, because there will be failures. Try to find purpose. And again, in my 30 years of my career, it has changed and shifted. And so sometimes my purpose changes and shifts. But I have a purpose in my life when it's all said and done, and that's very important. And you can start that at a young age, and it can grow and change as we grow and change. And again, lean on other people. We do not have all the answers. We are, again, stronger than we think, but we need a good team around us, whatever that looks like. And then again, never take no for an answer. Just keep leading and growing and doing what you can.
Yeah. I will say lead from wherever you are. And I say that because the term leadership has evolved so much over the last several years. And I think we used to think a leader had to be a title, a CEO, a vice president, a president, and that is a leader. But I was raised to lead from wherever I sit, meaning I don't care if you're the janitor, right? I was told and raised to have the same respect for the janitor that I would for the president, that I would for the CEO, and that has carried me. And so I don't care if you are at Burger King, you flip those burgers to the best of your ability and make sure those fries are done well, right? And that's just how I was raised. And I think people see that, and they see that in you, because they recognize you're going to work hard no matter where you are. And so I think for any young leader, anyone who is trying to figure it out, know that how you're showing up today is going to have a huge impact on how you show up later. So whatever your next looks like has to start right now. And so leadership starts whatever seat you're in, whatever opportunity you have. When someone tells you to go, you go. and you own it. And I think that has been what has been my cornerstone around leadership and kind of its definition. But I would say lead from wherever you are.
That's great.
Thank you all. So we've got a question from Brooke here online that says, how would you navigate a situation where women are not supporting you or other women around you? And anyone wants to take that first?
Well, I'm Southern, I'll take that. I always lead with kindness, smother them with kindness, win them over. And I'm not saying being fake, but someone cannot diss you if you just keep giving them love back. And you just have to say, I'm sorry you feel that way, but we're great. You know, just spin to a positive place always. I mean, you can't fight with someone if they're not fighting back with you. Someone can't hurt you if you don't allow them to hurt you. So I just constantly, you know, I live in New York City, but I'm really a Southerner, and I love being in Nebraska right now. But I think just always put goodness out there. And it's like a shield. I promise you, it will be a shield to all the haters, all the negativity, and people, they really can't act jerky if you're just standing as a good person. They really can't. It will eventually go to someone else and leave you alone. And
yeah, it's like they can, but it won't affect you.
Right.
Because you're like, well, okay, thank you.
I love this. I love that. I think it's so true, and I see this with entrepreneurs, and you know, I'm out fundraising for a fund right now, so there's people telling me no. Thankfully, not as many. I think we figured out who our ideal investor is, but if you think of an entrepreneur's journey, you seek input from all these people. I loved your story earlier about your village and like sort of insulating your village. The only person that matters in an entrepreneur's journey is their customer. It does not mean anything if some dumb investor says, I don't like your business. They're not your customer. Your customer builds your business. And so I take that ethos for me every day. It doesn't matter what this hater or what this person in the startup ecosystem thinks about how I'm running my career. They're not the entrepreneur I'm investing in. They're not the investor in my fund. And so I think for me, there is this shielding effect of know who you exist to serve and who exists to help you manifest your destiny. And be kind to everyone along the way. You don't want to leave this like trail of tears with you, but you can survive a no, and you don't even need to care about a no if it's not from the person that matters for your business. So,
right.
I would add also realize that it's not about you, most likely. It's about them. It's their problem. They're struggling with something that probably has nothing to do with you. That's hard to do, and then just be kind and let them deal with whatever they're dealing with.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, don't take it personal, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can you possibly take something personal if you're doing nothing? And I think that has been the way I've been able to navigate some of the haters and some of the people that have judged or that continue to judge. And let me just say this. For anybody who works at Burger King, it's a good job. Like, I thought about that after the fact. Like, that's a good job. That was actually my first job.
It's a job. Any
It is
job is a good job.
So I thought about that. Like, no, that's a step, and that's a step in the right direction. No matter where you're at, that's your step, and that's a good step. I wanted to say that because I don't want people to internalize things. So that's the coach in me. So make sure wherever you're at, you show up. But yeah, don't take it personal, because I guess if I'm showing up and I'm doing my thing and I'm doing it in kindness and I'm doing it in love and I'm doing the right work, then if you're mad, that's not my problem.
Anything else? All right. Our next question from Shanna Boyd online also is very similar to a question we got from one of our audience members, which is, you all work very hard. How do you make time to relax? How do you prioritize self-care? And how? This person says, I often burn myself out trying to do everything I want to do. So how do you take care of yourselves? How do you relax? How do you prioritize self-care?
Well, we as women, we try to do it all, and we're almost asked to do it all. So it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I can't do that right now. If we don't take care of ourselves, right? If we don't take care of ourselves, there's nothing left for us to give to our partners, to our children, to our careers. And so you have to really, and that comes with time. I mean, I know how much I can accomplish in a day, and it's a lot. But I also need to take time for me. Otherwise, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown, because sometimes it's so much that you're juggling. And so to be able to say no, and to also know, okay, I'm really looking forward to, I wanted to be able to make that event tonight, but I can't, but I'll make sure I find the time next week to get to that. And that's just, it comes through each week, seeing how much you can accomplish and not putting too much ahead of you. Sometimes I look at just a week, and especially this year, we've had to take one day literally as it comes because we don't know what's going to happen next week. And to just focus on a week at a time, 6 months at a time, a year at a time, and then you don't feel so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I think it's a great, this is something I struggle with. Did anyone else read that book, The Year of Yes? That came out like perhaps at the year that I was saying yes to too many things. And I remember reading it thinking, I actually can't say yes to anything else. Like, I need to, was it Shonda Rhimes that wrote that, right? It was, wasn't it? And I thought about what led Shonda to the point where she said, oh, I should be saying yes. And it was her laser focus to get her to a moment and she had manifested so much in her career, and she had built so much sort of wealth and stability and all these wonderful things for herself that got her to a point where she said yes. And I sort of had to retro-engineer that and say, if I'm going to get to my Shonda's Year of Yes, I have to start saying no to all this other stuff. And if I'm going to become the best investor that I can be, I need to focus on that. And I need to stop organizing all the community events, and I need to do all these other things, which that was really hard. The no and the focus at a moment when we're women and you feel terrible when someone asks for a coffee and you're like, I can't, right? And I can't even say next week, I'm not sure when. Like, and getting that confidence or that scarcity around my own schedule so I could be present for my children, so I could restore myself and ride to Cody Rigsby in the morning, whatever I do. But I wasn't good at guarding my space, and I said yes to too many things. I did not have a year of yes. I'm moving back toward a year of yes right now, just so everyone knows.
And I think
we say everything begins and ends with the customer. And that's our internal customer and our external customer. But what about us as our own customer, right? And when I think about that, I think about how many times I didn't take care of myself, how many times I didn't say no, and reflect on that. And now I'm to the point where I am starting to put myself first. I am starting to think about doing things for me and taking time so that my whole sense and my whole aura is where I want it to be, not where someone else is telling me it has to be. I'm about ready to go on vacation tomorrow with my daughter, and it's just she and I. Never did that before. Always worried about if everybody else could go. And you know what? Everybody else can't go, but we can. So we're doing it. We're doing it. Yeah. It is things like that. I fell off the exercise wagon, and I'm scared of it. I bought a bike. Have I sat on the bike? Twice. But it's there. It stares me down every time I go downstairs. I'm going to get on that bike.
They're so judgmental, those bikes are.
Say it again.
I'm like, you.
So, but, better late than never, right? There's mental health, there's physical health, and then there's just that feel good. What do you need to do for yourself just to feel good?
To Nora's point, I try to be really selective as far as friends I spend time with. I learned a long time ago that some people drain me and other people replenish me, and we do that for each other. So I have a small circle of those people that I need in my life, and I try to prioritize my time with them, and really I don't spend time with the people who drain me, because I can't.
Skip me.
Okay.
Miss Candi.
You said no.
No, I just gave my no. No, seriously, in all honesty, I looked out in the crowd at my mother and best friends. They're like, and they're like putting their glasses down because I'm not good at it. This is the space that I need help with because I do want to say yes, and it's because my heart is so big, and it's because I want to reach back to everyone. But I'm listening to these women that have been gifted to me in this moment, and I do believe that part of this journey is to learn to slow down, to work with intention, even for yourself. And so I won't, come up with all these ideas around this because I don't have any. But what I am doing is learning, and I'm reflecting on my path and my journey, and how in order for me to really be my best self to all of you, I do have to be my best self to me. So I'm learning to channel it. So for all of you struggling with it, I'm with you, and all we can do is take it in and learn and grow from this.
But I love last night when we met, you told me what you do for a living.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought the year she's had of holding up so many people. And I turned and said, do you have someone that's holding you up? Do you have a life coach? And you said yes. And that's recognizing that you need it too, because you probably sit with so much, that you are saving everyone. So I'm just decorating their houses. You're really saving them,
Well, and I think that's so real, and I appreciate, Candi, you saying, this is a journey. We're all works in progress. None of us have met our final destination in that, and we will always just keep going until we stop going. But radical self-care is different than just that bubble bath or that glass of wine. And I think for a lot of people, we don't recognize that when we talk about self-care, it's not just those simple things, in that we have the right to demand it. We have the right to demand to take back our own time. And to ask for that, because that is self-care, to say no, to say yes when it makes sense. So I appreciate all of you sharing that. The next question we have from our live audience here is, can you share a time when you got a no or a sexist response to something you were working on? How did you respond? And looking back, what would you change?
Like this week? No, I'm just teasing. So I've told I wore my sparkles today, guys, because I've been with ranchers and bankers out in outstate Nebraska all week, and I freaking love our state, by the way. I love our state. And I went into this week so worried that I was going to come in, city girl, somewhat young. I'm not as young as I would love to be, but my doctor's doing her best with Botox to sort of slow it down for me. But I went in really concerned, right? There's a bunch of data, especially around the venture capital space, that if a man does not have a daughter, he actually is less likely to think a woman can handle money. So you think about that, and I'm out there asking for $50 or $100 or $250,000, people's hard-earned money. And so I have all this data circling around in my head, and all these ways that I know men ask female entrepreneurs questions. Women ask the same questions of female entrepreneurs too, to be very clear. I was so pleasantly surprised at communities like Grand Island and Hastings and North Platte and Gothenburg. I never once felt like, because I'm a woman, I can't be an exceptional investor there. And then I don't know if it's just sort of that Nebraska small town, and these aren't small towns, but the Nebraska small town nature, that we do this all together, and I don't care where you came from, let's figure it out together. It was freaking lovely, guys. It was so lovely, because I'm coming off of a lot of weeks where I have felt those sexist remarks, and I am asked, not how am I going to win with this fund, and by the way, can you find enough women to invest in? I'm like, yeah, we're fine. We'll find the deal flow. Mm-hmm. But I'm asked how much we're going to win and how big we're going to do versus how much I can mitigate the risk and avoid the failure. And so I'm especially in this mode now where I have experienced both sides of, like, I'm asked not to fail and I'm asked to win. And I'm coming off of a lovely week where I totally brought my bias into this, worrying about some garbage that didn't play out. But yeah, you survive no's, and they're not your customer. That's the end of the day. They're not your customer, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Others.
And sometimes our biggest fears, it turns out to be something else we weren't even thinking about happens. And we're like, oh, I wasn't even fearful of that. Now should I be? But I shared with Nora earlier, I think I've had a lot of no's, which is okay. But our yeses, as far as career, has been more powerful than the no's. And one example is I felt like we should do a book. Why not? I wanted to do a book. I had a lot of information. I had a lot of tools and experiences. This was with our very first one. We've had 4 that we've done since then. But we went out to pitch a book idea. And we had so many no's. I mean, it felt like exhausting. It was like, one more no. And so I could have easily laid in bed with Robert and been like, well, I guess we shouldn't do a book. And there were times that crossed our minds, but I was like, no, we need to do a book. We're sitting on a book. We've already written it, basically, our lives. And so we thought, well, how can we not take no for an answer? And how can we go back out into this book world and find a publisher that would believe in us? And so we decided, instead of going to them, we're going to invite them into our home. Let them come and actually see who we are, what the book's going to be about, and let them meet us firsthand. And so we made sure that we pulled out every stop and every invitation to anyone and everyone that we could think of that could come and offer us a book deal. And so finally, Rizzoli, one of the best ones, came to our house. We had tons of wine, and they could see, and that always helps, but they could see and touch and feel and know what the book was going to be about. And so that was, again, a place where it wasn't a sexist moment, but it was a moment of like, what's this couple really going to offer us? And so we showed them what we were going to offer. We led them to us, and then they cut us a deal. So the no turned to a yes.
And Courtney, I love that perseverance. I was raised, hard work and perseverance is the root of all that you do. And I will tell you that there is no job, there is not enough money in the world for anybody in this audience, male or female, to ever compromise yourself, ever. If you put hard work and you persevere through that hard work, you will be rewarded. And I really want to make that a point, because losing yourself is so easy in whatever industry and whatever journey you're on. Don't let anybody take that away from you. Stay focused, work hard, and persevere.
I love that. Thank you all. I'm not seeing any other last questions, so I have one final question, and I just want to thank you all and thank the folks that are here. And again, big shout out to Jackie for all of her work. This has been really fulfilling, and there's those times and moments where you don't know that you needed to hear something, and watching Candy's social media, we're just like, I don't know who needs to hear this, or you hear that from folks, but definitely there are nuggets in what you all have said that I don't know who needed to hear it, but I'm sure there are people, and I know that exist for me. And so as we're about to wrap up our Saturday morning, before we go, I want you all to just give you the opportunity, to share any closing thoughts of just for the audience members and what you want people to take away with them today. Erica, we'll start with you.
We're going to do that again. We're going to start. Okay. We're going to start over.
I could start with Courtney, actually. I'm going to start with Courtney.
Yeah, Courtney start.
Bring it.
And then we'll come back to you. You're next.
No matter what age you are, have a dream and then go and get it.
All right, Erica, we're back to you.
Okay. Good. Wisdom escaping me. I ask for what you want. Go for your customer. You survive a no. And I would say there's incredible businesses being built in our backyard that are led by incredible entrepreneurs, and they happen to be women. And so.
Candi.
Okay, so here it is. And I'm a coach, so write this down. Or remember it.
Look, this is free work right here.
I'm thinking right now. This is real. So one of the things I always tell people when I'm coaching is revise your no. And so we were just talking about no. There is power in the word no. So one of the things that I always tell people, it is not no. It is not right now, or not yet, or not that. So it's not no. It's not right now, not that, or not yet. So I want you to remember that as you face the world of no's that we're all going to face, that's life, to remember that that moment may not be it, but there's a reason that moment is not it. And there is something to be said about climbing through the chimney and busting through the door. There's also something to be said about opening door number 3, right? Maybe it's door number 3. And all of my experiences in my life with all of my many no's and trauma and heartache has led me to this space that I never in a million years thought I would be at. But what it boils down to is I looked at every no and every hurt and every pain as, okay, that was meant for something. I was supposed to get something from that. And now I'm going to channel all of these experiences into something good. And so if I could tell you anything, it would be to channel your no, revise the no, and figure out what's next for you.
Melanie.
Okay, well, I work in marketing and advertising, so we work a lot with brands, and we all as individuals have our own brand too. And just as with products and services, that brand needs to be authentic. So I would just say be your authentic self, be true to yourself, do what you love, and just be you and put it out there, and people will give it right back to you. They'll love it.
Yeah. And before I go to Nora, I want to just give a little takeaway for myself is that we live in a world of abundance. And too often we work as if we live in a world of scarcity. And so my advice is let's work from a place of abundance where we're not fighting for only a few pieces of pie, but let's imagine life as a buffet, that the more people that we bring in, the more people that come, they're going to replenish that corn, okay?
Yes.
So we don't have to fight over those couple of last kernels. It's going to come back.
That's
So
right.
when we start to work from that mindset, we create a more inclusive space, and we can create a more diverse space, and then we can create a more equitable space.
That's it. Vote for Cammy.
Yeah, I may move just so I can.
Thank you.
So being part of the president of the Cammy Fan Club, actually I came upon something, I have to read from my notes, but I came upon something that I would love to be able to share. And it's from Sarah Blakely. Does everybody know who Sarah Blakely is?
Thanks.
Right?
Incredible founder.
Right?
Incredible
She's pretty
founder.
awesome, and I've decided that she's one of my new mentors. I haven't told her yet, but and she said, never dim your light. If you are labeled an aggressive, keep being assertive. If you are labeled being bossy, keep on leading. If you are labeled being difficult, keep telling the truth. If you are labeled as too much, keep on taking up space. If you are labeled awkward, keep asking hard questions. Don't shrink yourself to make people happy. Be yourself. You're beautiful that way. On behalf of Nebraska Furniture Mart, I want to thank our audience for being here and being a part of this journey with us. I'd like to thank Jackie for everything that she's done to really put this together and make it a special event. And Cammy, thank you very much for being our moderator. And for all of our special guests from our backyard, from far away, it's truly been a very humbling experience. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of Nebraska Furniture Mart for being part of us celebrating International Women's Month.
All right.